We're slightly late, but we apologize for that. We were trying to get some technical stuff to make sure you can stream online. If you are unable to join us, that you just join House of Praise YouTube channel. That's where we are streaming live for this event. And if you have a question, please text us or email us your question, and we'll also add it to the list of questions that we collated from the parents. Once again, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for the Parenting Conference 2025 at House of Praise. This conference is mainly a panel discussion to answer questions that we've been able to collect from multiple parents that are trying to understand how to navigate the legal system in a culturally sensitive environment. This conference is also partly sponsored by the government of Alberta, as I said, and also the federal government. So we have to acknowledge that. We've got a very strong panel today that is catering to multiple things that affect families and parenting. So I'm going to read the bios for everybody. And yeah, just bear with me. I'll start over there to the right. Just give me 1 second. So maybe let me come near. Over here, we've got, I'd like to call her Sister Toying. I'm reading what I've been told to read, okay? So bear with me here. She's a follower of Jesus Christ. She serves in different capacities. She's an amazing wife. Hey, check mark. A great mom, check. A caring daughter, check. Loving friend, a worker in God's house. She's a mentor to young generations and an entrepreneur. She has served and pastored alongside her husband in different ministries in different parts of the world, including Nigeria, Canada, Brunei, Australia, Kazakhstan, and she facilitates the Alpha program. She's also worked with children and teenagers, co-facilitating the Shine Women program in Australia. She's passionate about seeing young people grow, and she encourages and supports them. She's been married to her husband for over 26 years, and they've got 3 adult boys. She's an entrepreneur. She's involved in different ventures, franchise, real estate, product sales, and she loves to bake, travel, and keep fit. I want my cake. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Toying. If you're looking at our screens, that's her, fancy lady, our entrepreneur. This is when you clap. Please clap for it. All right. Over here. Oh, good. Where should I stand? Let me go somewhere here. Okay. We've got a phenomenal lawyer in Calgary, Alberta, and her name is Noye Opara. And she's been a lawyer for, gosh, okay, this bio is too long, but I'll start here. She works with Osuji and Smith, who are one of the largest legal entities here in Calgary. And she has also previously worked with Pro Bono Law Alberta. She's an executive director there, deputy executive director, director of programs and operations. She's been to Mount Royal University, University of Calgary, Masters of Law, Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources. I'll come back to her regarding this whole, me and President Trump, we have a situation. So I'll come back to you for the energy. But ladies and gentlemen, please clap for these lovely ladies. She loves writing, decision-making, change management. I can't read the bio, it's too long. Okay, over here. Mohammed. This is the only guy on the panel, so I don't know. He's rolling in the dough, he says. This is actually a dear colleague of mine. His name is Mohammed Asif, and he is a phenomenal banker. He's passionate about, and he's passionate and an advocate for mental health. He focuses on well-being, so he's actually older than he looks. He's got a background in unique challenges. Some of them he has experienced himself. And he believes that mental health is just as critical as education and professional experience. He also focuses on finance. He's worked with immigrants. He focuses on mental health issues, promoting holistic approaches combined with emotional support, and ensuring newcomers have the tools they need to be successful. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mohammed Asif. Previously my colleague with Royal Bank, and now he's a CEO somewhere else. All right, over here, we got, bear with me, let me pull up my fantabulous bio. Once again, please bear with me. I'm reading what I've been told. We are between lawyers, so I have to stick to the letter. These are two lawyers. This is Annette Davidson, and she is called Annie by most people. She practices law in Canada. She's done that she's now in the 11th year of doing that. And she was born and raised in Nigeria. She's experienced and grew up and appreciates rich social cultural diversity from her homeland. So when she's not dressed like this, you'll find her in gele and all of that fancy stuff. And after getting married, she relocated to Canada to join her husband. She found navigating a new and differently nuanced multicultural landscape in this beautiful country that she now calls home. She basically belongs to Canada and Nigeria. I will ask you where your loyalties lie the most. And she understands the challenges and opportunities that come with adapting to a new culture while striving to preserve one's indigenous values and identity. Her legal expertise includes that experience of Nigeria and Canada, and she's excited to share with us today how she's raising her children. She's got children. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Annette Davidson. We'll clap. Over here. A person that needs no introduction. Yes, but I will try. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mfon Odofia, a wife, passionate wife, and wonderful wife to the lead pastor of House of Praise. She's a social worker, a woman of God, a woman of multiple talents. She can spin and flip and do multiple things all at the same time. She's a mother to Delight, one and only Delight. And she's a wonderful wife to, yes, Pastor Edidiong Udofia. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mfong Udofia. So, thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to pick your brains today so that some people who are learning how to parent, learning how to deal with challenges in Canada will be able to pick knowledge from you. We've got a super fancy woman of God over there, raising 3 boys, married for 26 years. We've got legal support from Noe here, an expert in legal issues. We've got Mohammed with some banking issues. We've got another lawyer. We've got 2 lawyers multiplied. And then we've got social work as well here from System Phone. So if you have any questions, like we said, please feel free to send them, text them my way, or to the technical team, and we'll make sure that those are answered. But right now, I'm going to begin the panel with the questions, so please bear with us. My first question is going to go to Toyin. These are questions that have been collected by parents that are looking for more information on this. So, okay. So my first question to you is, and everybody feel free to jump in if you have some insight. My first question is, what are some tips for a parent who is dealing with anxiety over their growing children that talk back?
Okay. Hello? Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
So if a parent...
Like when you say children talk back to their parents. So the first thing is, I'm going to go the spiritual way. The Bible says, be anxious for nothing, but pray about everything. So as a parent, the first rule in parenting, I'll say, is to pray for God's wisdom for your children. And so when you're on saying children are talking back, sometimes talking back can be an expression of opinion or view. So we've got to understand, why are they talking back? And so what I would say to the parent is, first understand, what is your child trying to say? Are they trying to express a view? Are they trying to, put down your authority? And if they're trying to express a view, then you are the parent, and what I would advise is, in that situation, stay calm and tell that child, I want to hear you, but I'm not going to hear you in a disrespectful way. Let's have a conversation, and you're going to express your opinion and be respectful about it. So the first thing is, you are taking over the situation and calming that child down, and also calming yourself down. And another thing I will advise parents is, we think yelling makes our children hear us back. Yelling will not solve the problem. So when you yell, you're already giving the child a weapon to use, because they are going to think that is the way they have to speak back to you. So as a mom, sometimes we also need to take time out. Maybe go back to your room for the first few minutes and go breathe and take a breathing space, calm yourself down, then come back and say, let's have this conversation. Let's talk through this issue. But also emphasize, before you talk to me, son, before you talk to me, daughter, I want to hear you, but I want to hear you in a respectful manner. And I think that has taken charge of that child talking back to you in a rude way. And sometimes it might just be they want to express themselves. They just want to express their opinion. And I would say sometimes from the culture we've come from, it's hard for us to take that in, that our child wants to express their opinion. But the truth is we don't want a child that will be pushed around. We want them to be able to speak for themselves. So we need to learn to listen to their opinion, but done in a respectful way.
Okay, thank you. Wow. So, but I think so if I'm hearing you correctly, the biggest thing is that for the parent, I need to like calm myself down so that I'm able to speak like nicely.
And tell the child, I want to hear you, but you're not going to talk to me disrespectfully.
Okay.
So let's sit down and have a conversation in a respectful manner.
Respect.
So be willing to listen, and putting that heart also calms that child down to say, okay, mommy wants to hear me. I'm not just being shut down, or daddy wants to hear me. We can start from there.
Thank you. Thank you. I like that. I like that there's respect from one, like I want the parent is feeling anxious, but also the child is being asked to be respectful, right? So
I think
maybe
they will recognize that once you put that out and let them know that you want to hear them, they're willing to talk. And sometimes we need to listen through what they're saying.
Right.
And be sure that we are not also just pitch that, like it's not just one thing's our way. Think of what they're trying to say and understand where they're coming from, where that emotion is coming from, or what they're trying to say back to you.
Wow. Thank you. Does anybody want to add anything? Anything, Mohammed? Lawyer, madam? Okay. All right. We're going to switch gears and go into legal question. Question number 2, we're spinning. Now we're coming to you, Noe, and you can totally chip in. Get your mics, and let's go. The question is, can a parent sue a school for teaching values contrary to their beliefs? So maybe a school is teaching something, and you're like, I don't agree. Can you sue them?
Well, I always say to people that there are no yes or no answers in law.
Ha!
That's the truth.
Here comes the politician.
Everything depends on context. But before I get into that, I wanted to just generally say that there is no perfect parenting. And the Canadian state recognizes that. It's at the basis of law and policy. There is an acknowledgement that parenting is also a communal effort. Increasingly in legislation, we're also seeing a recognition of the role that culture and religion plays in parenting. And I say this to set the tone for the rest of the discussion, and so that everyone understands that this is not you're a better parent than me, or you know better than me, or you have what it takes to tell me what to do, or you haven't experienced what I've experienced. I just wanted to put that out there, because I think some of the struggles that we deal with as parents come from a place of self-judgment, societal pressure, and it's important that we lay those aside so that we can hear what is being shared, and receive it in a good way. So back to the question. In Alberta, education is governed by 2 pieces of legislation, the Education Act and the Choice of Education Act. Parents in this country have a right to choose where their children go to school. You can choose for your kids to go to public or to Catholic or to private, or you can choose to homeschool them. By choosing the school that your child goes to, you've basically accepted the curriculum offered by that school. And while there are certainly instances where you can have pushback around curriculum, I would say that you wouldn't get to the stage of suing the school. That's not the first thing that should come to your mind. The first thing that should come to your mind is to understand what is being taught, to get information about whether or not the teaching method is the problem, or the child's understanding is the problem, to have a conversation with the teacher. That's the first place of dispute resolution, is to have that conversation. schools generally have what's called sovereign immunity. You can't necessarily sue them, except the laws that set up the school boards provide for certain circumstances where you can. And before you can take advantage of those provisions, depending on the school that you're in, you have to have exhausted all of the dispute resolution mechanisms, which includes trying to work out your issues with the school itself, the teacher, the principal, the school board, before then exploring bringing an action against the school. But in the context of curriculum, I would say when you exercise your right as a parent to choose a school for your child, you are implicitly accepting that curriculum. You can have conversations about how things are taught, but I would say you can only manage what you cannot change. That would be the response.
Okay, so you can't just wake up and say, I don't like this, boom, take them to court, get a lawyer, come to Noe, if I come with you, what would you do? Kick me out, educate me?
I would advise you of the strength of your case, give you the pros and the cons,
Right.
and recommend that you go and talk to your child's teacher.
Okay, all right. Madam, Annie, are you adding to this one? Can I just sue the school? Like they are teaching something else, I don't like it.
I would say, like Noya has said, the starting point should always be a conversation. Because you need to find out, okay, what is your child actually being taught? Are you getting the right information? So get all the information first of all and know what is going on in the school. If it's contrary to what if it's against their governing bodies, their regulations, then yes, they're doing something wrong. But if they're not, then your belief is subjective. That's one thing we also need to know. When you talk about my belief, it may be different from what you believe and from what Sister Fon believes. So using your belief as a standard, something that is so subjective as your belief, might not actually fly in this instance because your belief is subjective. So the school is going by what is their governing legislation. If they are doing what they are authorized to do, then you may actually not have what we call a cause of action, because you have to have a cause of action before you go to court.
Okay, wow. Okay. You must have a cause of action. So you don't just wake up and say, I don't like what they're doing, whatever, or you didn't understand what they said in their curriculum. So basically, parents should read the curriculum.
Definitely.
So
Before you choose a school for your child, you should go through the curriculum. And they provide it for you at the beginning of every school year. I've seen instances where parents have intentionally pulled their children out of classes when they know that certain things are going to be taught, especially for those who attend the public school system.
Right.
Beyond that power of parental choice, you cannot dictate to a school what to teach.
Okay, but you can choose to take your child.
You can choose, you can exercise your power of parental choice to choose where your kid goes to school or the day that they choose to go to school. You can choose not, I've seen people who do that, but you can't tell a school what to teach. As my colleague said, once the school is working within the ambit of legislated curriculum, there's nothing you can do apart from systemic advocacy and change.
Okay, good. Wow. Okay, so bottom line is you can't just wake up and sue the school. You read the curriculum first, and then if you agree, you take your child. If you don't agree with the lesson they're teaching that day, you keep your child at your house. Okay. All right, moving on. Mohammed, I've got a financial question here. What advice do you have for a parent whose children want and expect expensive things that the parents cannot afford? The banker is getting to speak. So the children want they want Gucci and essentials, hoodies, and and you can't afford them.
Thank you, Immaculate. When I was actually preparing, so that one hat we all can wear was easy for me to wear was like being as a parent, as a father who has a limited income, or as a banker who has some financial information. So instead of that, I actually go to my meditation and I just look into that. If Socrates, if Buddha and Jesus are alive, and this question been asked to them, how they would have responded. Okay. So let's say Buddha says, desire is the root of suffering. Teach your children not to crave, but to find peace in simplicity. So as a parents, how we live our life and we show our children is, if the material things that matter to me, I cannot expect it not matter to them. And if the child see wealth as a source of happiness, they will chase it. But if they see contentment as a source of happiness, they will always have it. And when I wear the hat of Socrates, so he said, what is wealth? And what is the true need? Do we seek things because they are good? Or because others tell us they are?
But if I'm a child, I just want it. My friends have it. My friends at school, they are wearing essentials, hoodies, and I want Nikes. I don't care where you get the money. Me, I just want the money, the things.
Why do you want this?
To look like my friends, to belong.
Will it make you truly happy?
That I don't care about. I just want to look like my friends.
If it were gone tomorrow, would your happiness remain?
I don't know. That is not in the answers that I've But I'm just thinking, because when I talk to the teenagers, that they're not thinking much about. They're just saying, well, I want it. My friends have it. Everybody. In fact, they'll say everybody, even though not everybody. They'll say everybody has Nikes. Everybody has the Jordans. Everybody has the, so they're not thinking like, would it make me happy or something. They're not philosophizing.
Yeah. So just let me then I'll answer your question that if the Jesus say a man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions, Luke 12:15. So the idea is that in this modern society, in this complex with AI, with all the information, with the parents who are immigrants, who are challenging, to survive, to learn about the curriculum, to learn about the schooling, it's not that easy, for us. Like my immigrant, my son went to school, he had a lot of difficulties, but I never been in this system. So, and then I am also suffering from my health issues, and I also have work issues. So I find, the source for me, the guidance, is still the same source which we hold in our hand, but we are not practicing and reading anymore. It still gives us the same answers as we have. Like when we see people like Warren Buffett, who is a multi-billionaire, but he says he's content with a 3-bedroom house. So we understand that the wealth and the happiness is there. Yes, the issue is with the media, with the marketing. When we follow any sports person, they wear certain shoes. The media tell us it's hot, our brains are being controlled. Then I'm controlled with my paycheck. Then I have to use my credit card. So then all things get there. But where I can find a source of peace and answers, I find always read old books and think new way.
Wow. Okay. So, but if I heard you correctly, so faith is playing a matter into this, then the parent is also modeling this contentment, and then to the child we would be saying, just be content. So as a parent, if the child is asking for expensive things, I'd be saying, be content. Look at me. Be content. I don't have Air Jordans. Okay. We are chipping in, right?
Yes, so if I may add to that, I think it's important to also acknowledge the pressure that child may be feeling and validate it, right? So validating the feeling and the pressure that comes from that is also important, because that's when the child will feel, you heard me. I'm sure most of us who hear our children tell us, Mom, Dad, you don't understand, right? So I think it's important to come to that place of, okay, you know what? I may not understand, but I can only imagine how it is for you to be among friends that, all have designers and you don't have it. I bet you that must be very, very, frustrating for you, isn't it? And then you can support the child at the emotional level, and then you can then go on to teach. Because when the child has this understanding that my mom, my dad gets me, right, they will be more, likely to listen to what you have to say. But I do know that at times as African parents, we go back with, what do you mean? The Bible says this, the Bible says that. At that point, that child is not listening, right? When a child is emotionally activated, they're not listening. What we need to do first is to, using the language, is to help the child regulate. So co-regulate with the child. What is the emotion that you are feeling? Maybe shame has showed up, right? You're telling your child, the Bible says, when they're saying, I feel ashamed when I'm among my friends and they all wear designers. So you can say, okay, you know what? Oh, I understand that. I can imagine how, shameful that could be. So let's deal with shame. Because when we can tackle the emotion, help the child deal with the emotion that comes from not having that thing, then it's easy for the child to go on and not have that thing. But when we don't acknowledge the emotion that they are feeling in that situation, and we're trying to sort of align it, or just say, you know what, the Bible says when you are more than this, I don't think that's going to be very effective.
Okay, from a social worker perspective, this is now the answer. So, we have to marry this one. So you have to first acknowledge, and then, we're starting with Mohammed. You have to leave content, because even you, if you're blowing money and then you're not buying me essentials, we have a situation. So even you have to model, and then Sister Mfoy is saying you acknowledge the emotion, and then from a social work perspective, manage their emotions and acknowledge that what they are feeling is valid, but you're still not buying the essentials. You're just comforting.
No, so I'm saying, before, I'm going back to where you said, where we, as faith people, as Christians, we tend to just want to quote the Bible at our children, right? The child would listen to you only if they feel that you understand them, right? So then when you now start to say, godliness and contentment is of great gain, before you go to when you're using scripture, be content with what you have. First of all, is acknowledging what is the impact of this situation on my child, right?
Right.
What emotion, what do they have to deal with? I have to, first of all, relate with them on that level of, you know what? I have experience. I don't know. I don't have friends at all I may not have had friends at all with designers, but I know what it is to feel shame, right? So when we feel shame, this is how we deal with it. So I'm saying if the child knows how to deal with the emotion that they are confronted with when they don't have those things, okay, it's easy for you to now have the conversation and tell the child, this is how, to be able to deal with it. So maybe I'll just give an example. I think on Christmas Carol here in church, we had, when the teenagers were singing, they sang a particular song that they're saying, light up, so you had to use your phone to turn on my daughter doesn't have a phone. So where she was sitting, all her friends all had phones and they all, light up their phones. So I was just walking and I went and I saw her, she was all muddy. So, I feel left out, right? What's going on? Everybody has a phone and I don't have a phone. So if I start the conversation, no, you don't need a phone, she's not going to hear me then. So what I did, I just hugged her. I said, oh my God, I can imagine how this is for you. You truly felt left out. So tell me more. And we talked about what it means for her to feel left out for not having a phone. When we dealt with the feeling of left out, it's now said phone. I said, okay, we'll talk about phone later. Most times we try to teach our children when they are activated emotionally. When we talk about the wise brain, the learning brain, and the logic brain, if your child is in the emotion brain and you are teaching them at that time, they are not retaining anything you're saying. So, but when they move from the emotion brain to the wise mind, that's when they can learn. So it's important to know that. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so you have to keep checking which brain are we in today? The wise brain, in the emotional brain. But yeah, okay. So if I'm hearing this brain, I still don't have the essentials. She did not give me phone, but she's just kind of managing.
No, but then I've talked about why you won't have phone. I keep validating why you won't have phone. I reminded her why we don't need the phone, and then she's okay, right?
Right.
But if I just came and said, you are different, you are special, you are a child of God, go back into church, why would you come out of church?
The people who had phone were not the children of God. Me too. I want. Okay, but since you had the mic, and anybody else can chip in. We have this other question, and it's on. I think it kind of falling towards you, so I'll get to that question. What strategies can parents use to help preteens develop a healthy self-esteem and body image? What strategies can parents use? Because some preteens are kind of in that spot. They're not fully teens, but they're also not kids, and so they're kind of.
I would say, first of all, is creating a safe environment and then validation. So, for example, you start to notice your child. I don't know how many of us are conscious of it. And maybe your child dresses up, oh my God, you look so beautiful, right? I love those shoes. They really look good on you, okay? And, your handwriting is different. So just being intentional. So I want to talk about intentionality, that everything the child does, because most times as parents, we always criticize that we are the greatest critic for our children. And it's not from a place of hate, it's from a place that we want the best for them. So one of the strategies that I teach is 5 positive for every negative, right? If I've criticized my child once, I must be intentional to pay back 5. Right?
How did you arrive at this number?
No, it's just a strategy that we teach to parents that we find that works, right? So if maybe in the morning something has happened and maybe I've snapped that you didn't get, maybe I found out that you didn't do your homework and, I've said something that I find is not validating. So within the day, I am going to be conscious of maybe sending an email, hey, hi, school, just wanted to let you know, I checked your power score. Oh, you did so well in maths. I'm so proud of you.
That's one.
Yeah, you understand? And then it comes back, oh my God. Thank you so much for the way, putting away your plate after dinner. It just shows me that you are very respectful. So you're just looking around, but you were doing it with intention. The child wouldn't know that that's what you're doing. But you're very intentional about making up for that one mistake that you did. So that's and then number 2 is finding, things that the child likes, and encouraging them and going out of the way to make sure that you encourage that child in the areas of their strength. So pay attention more to their strength and minimize their weaknesses, because we can grow better in our areas of strength. It's easier to build on that. I'll stop there.
Okay. Sorry, guys, I'm right behind you because I'll be shuffling between. Yes, you have something to add?
Yeah, just to add to what she was saying. A sandwich, right? You have the 2 slices of bread and you have the whatever you have in between, right? Mm-hmm. So you can deliver a negative message like a sandwich. Let there be something good, then you have the negative one in between. And it works for everybody, whether it's a teenager or an adult. You want to tell me, you came in late. You can just say, you're looking good today. You know what? I love what you're wearing, And we started at 3 o'clock, but you came in at 3:30. So if you are coming early, we would have started on time. But you know what? Just find something else to add at the end so that you have positives in between, but the negative message. And that way the person kind of takes it, in a better form, because you've given them, you started with something good.
So you start with something good, then you go to the bad stuff, and then you kind of find the sugar and you code it. Okay. So we have 5 things, the ratio is 1 bad thing to 5. So bottom line is really to create an environment where you're very careful as a parent, you're looking for the good that the child is doing and acknowledging those things and helping them to build their self-esteem. And then to Annie's point is you sandwich, all times sandwich, good, and then we put the shady stuff in the middle, and then you put the other good at the other side. All right. Noe, did you have something to add? And I'm here with you. Are you adding to that one? How can you build self-esteem? Noe, did you have something? Like to help those preteens with self-esteem?
I think to add to what Sister Fawn and Annie said is never shame your children. Be your children's greatest cheerleader. Because they're going to face all these pressures outside. Someone's going to say something nasty to them outside. Someone's going to put them down in school. Their teachers are going to say things to them. But let them know that Mommy and Daddy are my greatest cheerleader. And because when you build that esteem, good esteem from home, there's nothing anyone can say to them outside that's going to affect them because they know who they are. So you've built their identity, like with all the things they've said, but even from when they're young, like you wake up and you're amazing, you know you're amazing. And there's a way it affects their mindsets and their consciousness. And when they are out there, I remember there was a day we were in another country and we went to a church and the pastor preached. We were first-timers. And he called the first, and he said something about sinners and da-da-da-da. I can't remember how we put it. And my son looked and he said, that's not me. That's not us. He says, I know who I am in Christ. I am not that sinner thing he just described. I am God. I was like, we all stood there. We didn't say anything. But because of the things you've heard, like you've said to him, he kind of affirmed himself at that point. So we can build our children's esteem from home by being their greatest cheerleader, cheering them up, telling them how good, how amazing they are. Even if they're on a journey of struggling with their physique, work on that journey with them. So if you think your child needs more exercise because you think they are getting overweight, you can say, oh, you know what? I want to go for a walk. Would you escort me? So you're not making about that child anymore. You're making as if you need their help and you're carrying them along on that journey. So that way they get to do that thing or exercise or something with you, but they are also benefiting more. We don't make it negative about them. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to pause for a microsecond. I'd like to acknowledge you guys for coming in this weather, honestly. Thank you. Please clap for yourselves. And please also clap for them. You guys, thank you for making it in this weather. It's really cold outside, so thank you for coming. And also, I want to acknowledge the online audience. Yes, we see you guys. Thank you so much. And we will get to your questions. We're trying to push through questions as quickly as possible, but also get you valid answers that you're looking for to parent very well. So I know you've just answered, and I agree with what you just said, because my dad always told me you are enough. And I remember that last year, 2024, something happened, and I had to I remembered what my father said to me. And I was like, this person is trying to tell me all these things. What do you mean? I am enough. If that's not good for you, take a hike. So I'm just buttressing. If you try to help your child to build self-esteem and to be confident in who they are, that they are loved, they can do shady stuff, but they're still loved, and then we figure out the other stuff. So that is really good stuff. If you teach your child and create their identity and affirm that identity, they can always, even when the world is calling them different labels, they will come back and say, but what did my parents say that I am? What does my name say? What does all of this stuff? So I had to rediscover my name because I remembered my dad called me Grace, and he told me I am enough. So while I'm quickly here, I'm going to ask you to add also to this question. How can the parents then support their preteens in managing the peer pressure to make good decisions when they are making bad decisions? So like they don't want to go to school. They don't want to make their bed. They just don't want to do nothing. So we've affirmed them over there. You're a good kid over there, but you're a good kid that does not want to do anything.
I think we all went
African parents
we all
too.
went through that stage at one point that we don't want to do anything, or you don't want to do what your parents ask you to do. And sometimes you say, oh, tidy your bed or fix your room, and they go, they don't do it. And I found that they're similar to something Annie was saying, going to speak to that thing in a positive way, but to pass some message. So I'll give you a typical example. I want my son to do something. I've talked about it once or twice, and I remember the other day I said to him, I said, sweetheart, I know you're an amazing kid, and I know you're an obedient child. And I know you don't go out of your way on purpose to disobey mommy or to say what I say does not matter. I would love if you would do this, this, and this, because I know you're an obedient child, and I know you've got it in you to do the right thing. And we just, and I walked away. And at 30 minutes after, I went upstairs, and it was like, something came over me. He was just doing everything I had said. If I went to the office, I was saying to my husband, you won't believe something I've been like, do this thing for 2 days, like just one small, okay, let's go from a different angle, change the, so bringing the good in them, linking it to what they need to do can help. Sandwiching that conversation can help them. And also just to let them see why they need to do that thing. I think bringing it from a place of love and care helps them to understand that you're just not making it about, because they always want to make, no, they want you to make it feel that you're making it about yourself. So, mommy, you just want me to keep the house clean because that's the way you like it. But if you go from making your room clean is also good for you. It helps your psychology mind. It goes, when you wake up in the morning and your room is organized, it sets your brain for the day. I'm not making it about myself or making the room, I'm making about the benefits for them to see. And so when you now start bringing it from that point, it can help them see the good in things that they need to do.
Wow. Wow. That's like sales. That's like you're slightly persuading them, but you're sandwiching. So you're doing all of these things. I'm learning too. Ethan, I'm coming for you. All right. Here comes the legal situation. We are back. Noe. What rights does a parent have if a child calls child services on them? Does a parent have any rights?
Parents have rights. The child services thing is a very scary thing for an average immigrant parent, especially because a lot of people get their information about children's services from second-hand sources. A lot of people come into this country and their friends tell them, oh, my child did this to me, and you be very careful with these children, and they can do this to you. There's a lot of second-hand information about children's services. I'm glad we have a social worker here, so I'm sure she has first-hand perspectives. But one thing I'll say is this. Children's services is an arm of the government that steps in to protect children who have either gone through harm or are danger of being harmed. It is important to note that children's services is not your enemy. I will say this. I say this to people who are interacting with the child welfare system here. The moment you have that mindset, it changes the way that you respond to valid support, valid recommendations. And I'm not saying that we don't have instances where people have negative experiences that are not justifiable. I'm not trying to exclude that. I'm just saying that it's important to not have, at first glance, that negative view. It's also important to note that not every complaint to children's services comes from people that you know. Because I think a lot of parents assume that just because they got a call from children's services, then it's their child that reported them. That's not the case. Every member of the public who sees a child in danger is allowed to pick up the phone and call children's services. The next step for them is to investigate whether or not that complaint is valid. So it is important to not blame a child, especially if the child is telling you, I didn't say anything. It's possible that neighbors, friends, people who are concerned could have reported. But if you get a children's services complaint, or if you get a call from children's services, irrespective of who made the complaints, the first thing to do is to listen and understand what has been told to them. Children's services follows a process. When they receive a complaint from a parent, from a child, whoever it is, and I'm trying not to make it about who made the complaint here, the first step is they have an intake. The intake reviews the facts, and then there is a determination as to whether or not there is sufficient harm going on for further investigation. If Children's Services determines, and they have trained intervention practitioners, trained child people who know how to assess these complaints, if they determine that there's nothing there, they close the intake. So I always tell parents sometimes that you may stay in this country for 10 years and not know that you had a children's services intake because nothing came of it. You may not know. Now, if it progresses from an intake to what is called an assessment, that's when children's services then contacts you. They want to investigate, they want to talk to you, they want to talk to the children, they want to talk to school authorities, they want to talk to anyone who's relevant in the community of that child to understand what is going on. And at that point, think about it as an opportunity for you to present your perspective as a parent. a child's perspective is different from an adult's perspective. There's a reason why children have to be cared for up till a certain age. The way they see the world, the way they see things is often different. And when a child presents their perspective to, the school, or maybe the school calls children's service, or whoever it is, there's an opportunity for the parents to present their own perspective. So see it as an opportunity to present your perspective and to educate. It is very important to educate, because a children's services caseworker or child intervention practitioner does not know your child the way you know them. They don't live with you in your house. They don't know their mannerisms. They don't know their dispositions. This is somebody who's just coming into your space and asking questions. If your initial reaction is to be defensive, you lose a valuable opportunity to educate. So you need to see that as an opportunity to present, one, your perspective as a parent, secondly, to educate. And that education could include things like patterns of behavior. It could include things like historical incidents. It could include things like culture, religion, because these are factors that caseworkers are supposed to take into consideration when they are conducting their investigation. So I would say that should be your primary focus, to present your perspective as a parent on the issues that happened, not from a place of defensiveness, but from a place of bringing clarity to the situation. So that the person who's coming into your home or into your space then gets an understanding of context and background, and they're then able to take that away, right? And if for any reason the assessment progresses into a legal status or some advanced intervention, at that particular point in time, I always recommend that you still not be defensive, right? Seek to listen. The goal of children's services is to help parents parent better, provide support. If your focus is on, I didn't do what they say I'm doing, or this child has disgraced me, or this child has taken me and put my name out there, you will not listen and you will not take advantage. And the more you dig your heels in as a parent, the more the intervention increases. Because it tells them that you're not focusing on doing the things that they're asking you to do, right? I won't go into like the other steps that could happen after that, but I'll stop there. But I would say that the key message in here is avoid being defensive. Your perspective as a parent matters. Present it with a view to providing clarity.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Annie.
I'll just ask one question from her. Yeah. At what time parents should seek legal advice?
That's a great question. A fantastic question. I think once you get to the assessment stage or the investigation stage, if you have any concerns, if there are any concerns based on the history in the family and you're worried about that, you can reach out to a lawyer or to a social worker to request assistance on how to approach the investigation. And not with a view to necessarily being avoiding the issues, but with a view to understanding what is important for children's services to know as part of the investigation. However, like I said, a lot of interventions could end at an assessment. But if it then progresses to the point where the children need to be removed from the home, or there's what is called a family enhancement agreement needs to be put in place, at that point, it is helpful to seek advice, even just to understand what your rights are, what your obligations are, right? Because at that point, any wrong step you take could become detrimental. So I would say, ideally, the assessment stage, but definitely if you get to the point where there needs to be, the children need to be removed, or where there needs to be some kind of family enhancement agreement or arrangement put in place, just so that you're understanding what you're getting yourself into. Because when a lot of our people are breaching family enhancement agreements, and once you've breached it, depending on which caseworker you get, Sometimes one breach is enough for them to move towards getting a supervision order. That's usually the next step. Sometimes some people will, will have it easy and have multiple family enhancement agreements in place before Children's Services seeks to get a supervision order. But yeah, I would say once you get to the point where a family enhancement agreement is being put in place, at least to understand your rights, speak to a social worker or speak to somebody who understands how the law works.
Okay. Thank you. Annie, are you adding to that, or should I fire you one more and then we switch back?
Well, no, just want to say that the child services system is not a hammer. They're not just about what taking your child away from you. They're actually empowered by the law, which calls them the Child, Youth and Family Enhancement Act. Their purpose is family unification. So they acknowledge that there's something here that might not be the best, maybe because of lack of knowledge, like she said, a lot of education. They provide resources, a lot of resources to families. They can connect you with all kinds of parenting courses, psychologists, assessments, anything that you need, they're there to help you. So they're not just there to take your child away. Like she's mentioned, family enhancement agreement. You have that in place, and then they say, okay, we need to help you to learn how to parent in this place. For instance, some things you really cannot do the way you do it in your country. So we're going to teach you. There's the education component. They provide they can help you with some level of funding as well. If your child is a baby and you really need help, they can connect you with, housing facilities, income services. So they're not just there as a hammer. They're there to support the families to make sure that we thrive.
So there is some misunderstanding, I think, then. Because most people, once you hear child services, the point is they're taking the child or something. Right? So, Sister Mfon, you have a...
Yes, so even though I may not... years ago, I worked in the child welfare system while I was still in social work before I moved on. So I no longer do social work. So just so that you know. Yeah, so I no longer do social work. But I remember that I worked in child and family service. Like they said, the intention is not just to remove. In fact, before you apprehend a child, the process that you, the caseworker, goes through to prove why you need to remove that child is a lot. You have to go through a lot of hoops to prove that you need to, apprehend this child. So child service is not just immediately something. The apprehension would happen immediately if maybe like the danger is huge. So for example, most of us with spanking our children, the lawyers are here. If you want to spank in the bum, right? And don't use any object. Once you leave a mark on a child's body, that one, immediately comes on, the file comes from intake. You can move from intake to apprehension within 1 hour. Like it would just flip, right?
Just by pinching somebody.
No, spanking. Pinching. No, if you leave a mark. If you leave a mark on the body.
I'm not saying please squeeze the children. No, I'm just saying, so if you're disciplining, let me call it discipline. African style. They make sure there's no mark on anybody and there is no weapon.
Yeah, use your hand. If you use your hand, the lawyers are here, right? If you must do it, but right now they're discouraging, don't do it. But if you must do it, don't use turning stick. Because I remember when I got there, they were like, turning stick, turning spoon. That's what most of us don't use. Don't use belt. Don't use any object on your child. But please know that, and please, this is where parents, you have to build friendship as well. Build community around your children. Because even if your child needs to get apprehended, once a child is apprehended, they're going to ask you first. Kingship is the first one. Do you have any family that you feel this child can stay with before the child goes to foster care? But if you're somebody that you don't have community around you, then you're not going to have anybody. Then that puts your child at risk of going to foster care. But if you have someone that say, Sister Toyi, these children are coming to your house, that's what is going to happen first. So,
thank you so much for bringing that up. So that's also a key thing, jokes aside, build a sense of community for yourself and for your child so that there is other people that your child, because nobody knows what could happen. In a split moment, you might do something. So is there a safe space where your child can go? So build a community, create a safe society for yourself and for the child, and hopefully nothing really happens. And discipline in Canadian style. So if you have to get some help, discipline in Canadian style. You don't need to bring out the hammers and the turning spoons and weapons.
Yeah, so she's mentioned something, and I actually studied that thing this week. Discipline is not synonymous with punishment. I realized that this week.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline actually means to train. It's not to punish. So disciplining your child is not about, oh, I need to bring down the hammer on your child. Discipline means to train your child in the way they should go. Teach them the way, what they do's and don'ts and how to navigate things. So it's not about punishment is what we often do. And if you punish your child, especially with anger, then that's a problem.
It is how we were brought. Sometimes the only time you saw your dad, hey, you knew something was going to happen. So sometimes it's the upbringing from back home that, as a parent, find yourself, or if you see that you're doing this thing, it's coming to you quickly, you're picking things. Maybe your parents spanked you, but this is Canada. The child has a different passport than you, or you have the same one, but they have rights. So if you spank them, we might get into some of these situations. We don't want to. All right. Moving on, I'm coming back to you, Annie, and then I'll switch back into the other. So we're still staying with the legal thing. If there is an altercation in the home and police is called, what is the best legal defense the parent can engage?
Okay.
So the discipline went wrong, I guess, at this point.
I think also perspective also is an issue here, because we used to, I know from Nigeria, if police comes to your house, things are falling apart, right? But in this country, the police actually need to protect you. So for them showing up doesn't mean that right now, okay, my back is against the wall. Don't raise your hackles right away. Because they might just come to find out, is everything, in fact, they always start with, are you okay? That's what when they come to ask you, is everything okay? Are you okay? So let us not jump to, okay, what's the point of, this is too early for legal defense,
Okay. So if the police come to your house, you don't call lawyer, you don't go to lawyer directory, ting, ting, ting. Okay.
It may be too early, because even if there is something that has happened and there's a need for the police to take a step, they may not file a charge right away. Because they still go through the investigation, they still go through, finding out what has gone wrong, why did it happen. And you could end up not getting a case filed against you, and you don't need to start looking for legal defenses. But the most important thing at that point is to learn, what happened? Because they will always ask you also, what happened?
Okay.
And then if you did something wrong, acknowledge and then figure out how to fix it. And at that point, they will likely not even take you to court if they find out, and they didn't know she was wrong. She said she's not going to happen. This is why it happened. So we are convinced that, or satisfied that it's not routine, it's not normal. So let's help her to find out, go to some parenting courses, go find out, how do you do, like she said, if you're heightened, what do you do about it at that time? So you may not always end up in court and looking for a lawyer.
Or maybe tell them the truth too, right? The police. So you're not lying to them.
You always have to, because they will find out if you don't.
The person who asked this question, tell the truth. Tell the police the truth. There's no fighting. They don't run. You don't need the lawyer. So a lawyer has answered you that you don't need them. So you can take that to the bank, say the banker. I'm back here. Your question is, what role should parents play in monitoring their preteens' online activities and social media utilization? Ha! And it came to the right person. So what role should the parents play in monitoring? I guess for you're already at the, do not even give them, but we've moved on.
No, it's
we are here.
You can give them depending on context, right? Like they said, every parent have rights, and you decide what works for your child.
Yeah.
And Eddie can decide that a child can have phone at 10. I can decide that it's a different age. So there's no right or wrong answer. It depends on the parent and the child. But what role should you play
in monitoring?
So when you say monitoring, I would that word I have a little concern with.
So I don't know if the person was using wrong English. Maybe the lawyers will tell us if we are even allowed to monitor.
So
no, we are coming to you. Can we monitor? But from a social perspective, what role can a parent? Maybe they're asking, can you even monitor, or should you?
No, I think more parenting for me, we should adopt a parenting approach where we parent to prepare, right, and not parent to protect. So what I mean by parent to prepare is that online, our children, they are going to be online, right? So rather than monitor, how can I prepare my child so that when they are online, they are safe, right? Because I don't know how much you can monitor. That's the truth. I don't know how much you can monitor. But we can have conversations, right, around what is safe online and what's not safe. And having that conversation, we shouldn't have it from a judgmental stance, right? We should have it from a point like, you know what? She used the word discipline rather than, trying to punish. So I'm trying to train this child on how to be online. And it starts from, like, you wouldn't have allowed a child to have free online access and all of a sudden you come and say, I want to put rules. And I think it's conversation. Okay, you know what? Delight, so now you have a phone. Let's talk about what that looks like, okay? So you have a phone, you use a phone till 8 p.m. At 8 p.m., can we all agree, what time do you think is good for you to use the phone till? Oh, mommy, I want to use your 9. Oh, I think it's 8. We negotiate, right? Or we now agree that it's a certain time. So at this time, then what happens with the phone at that time? We now agree, we write it down. So what happens if you don't drop the phone at that time? This is where most of us African parents miss it. We expect children to do something, and we have a consequence in mind, but we don't, the consequence is not communicated to the child, right? But if I communicate and we've agreed that the consequence, if you did do this, you're going to lose the phone for 3 months. So me and Delight, we have an agreement. It's known. So God forbid, if Delight now defaults, then I say, hey, it's me and Delight against the consequence, not Delight alone against the consequence. The girl, now that the phone is going to go away, what are we going to do? Let's talk about how we are going to survive without a phone, because the consequence has to come in. And most times what happens to us as parents is that when we bring the consequence, just like at work, somebody, your manager does something, you're going to have an attitude. When our children start to have attitude, we become uncomfortable with dealing with that attitude, and we start to shift the landmark. Immediately you start to do that, that child already knows, next time, I know what to do. My mom or my dad is going to shift this, right? So we have to develop within ourselves coping skills that when Delight is upset and she's not answering me, I am going to be okay with dealing with that discomfort in me because I am training and I'm disciplined.
Wow. So there's training, but we are doing to train. We are not monitoring. We are just preparing them. We are training to prepare. So whoever asked this question, you want to monitor your children, maybe the lawyers, are we even allowed to monitor?
But when you are monitoring somebody, it's like you're looking, I feel it's punitive. Oh, I want to see so I can see something, It's like whatever you are looking for, you are going to see.
Hey. Okay. All right. In the interest of time. So please do not monitor, prepare your children. Okay.
No,
monitor.
She said have guidelines.
And have conversations.
And don't have arbitrary guidelines. And I'm also going to add to that. The guidelines shouldn't be for the child alone. Because I shouldn't be on my phone 247 and then tell my child, get off the phone. So I should also have guidelines because I want to model an example to the child.
If I didn't have microphone, I'll be doing my dollar signs. Okay. Mohammed, did you have anything to add to this one?
Yesterday, I learned about this new app, 360, so when you download, so you know where your family is, right? So my son, I sent him a message, he accepted, but he didn't ask me anything, but he went to mom and say, like, does he want to keep an eye on me? So then I remind him of the incident, recently, he missed his stop and he lost. And so we didn't know where he is, and he couldn't explain us where he is. So then he understand that, okay, what it actually is for my safety or to help me not to see where I am, So I think what she's saying is absolutely right,
Yeah, so communicate. You have to be communicate and be very clear on the consequences. And also prepare yourself to have coping skills so that you know how to cope when you're administering the consequence, because it might be painful to take away the phone from your child or whatever, but you're doing it because that was the agreed consequence. Okay. Legally, can we monitor?
Do we have any questions around corporal discipline? Because I think we started having that conversation and we
kind of went. Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to bring it back because I think it's one of the areas where a lot of immigrant parents are missing it. So in Canada, corporal discipline is legal within set reasonable limits. Under Section 43 of the Canada's Criminal Code, parents, teachers, or any person that is standing in the place of a parent is allowed to use force for correcting a child or a pupil if the force does not exceed what is reasonable under the circumstances. That's the way that the law puts it. So it doesn't apply to just you as a parent, it applies to school teachers. At this point, there's a lot of pushback or a lot of calls to abolish Section 43, including recently under the, I think, Action 6 of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee's report. So it's something that is a debate that is currently ongoing. However, it is important to note that reasonable force is very subjective.
Yeah.
Reasonable force in a country like Nigeria is different from reasonable force in Canada. And there are a lot of materials online, and Immaculate, I can share some of them with you, that explain how to properly spank a child in this country. They show you pictures of how to place your hand, what parts of the body that you can touch. I encourage every parent there to go and look for these resources. I can also forward some of them to you. You can share them.
Please.
It's important to know how to spank. Don't just say spanking is allowed in Canada. For those of you who are not aware, in 2023, a parent pled guilty to child abuse charges as a result of spanking. And he was sentenced to almost a combined 18 months in prison in this city of Calgary, yes. It is not, I do not say this to create fear. I say this to say that we cannot just hide under the umbrella of spanking is legal in Canada. We have to understand how it should be done, when it should be done, and the way it should be done. And the last thing I also want to mention in relation to this is, because immigrant parents mostly have multi-generational households where you don't just have the father, mother, but you may have an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, it is important that you're passing this information to them. The law sees them as acting in local parentage, as parents. So if they do anything that runs afoul of the law, they will be charged in their individual capacities. You may also have to bear some liability as well, but if people are living with you in your homes, they must understand how things work in this country the same way as you understand them.
So grandma or
Please,
somebody
sorry.
cannot do this one.
Yeah. So for the lawyers, please, I have a question. And maybe just to confirm, I do know, I can't really remember, that's why I want to rely on you a lot, that even with children, there's a certain age, I think, is it 11 or 12, that once your child gets to that age, it's illegal for you to spank.
The law doesn't make reference to age, right? But generally, when it comes to child welfare matters, 12 is the age where the voice of the child begins to be given a lot of weight, right? In other circumstances, not in the circumstance of spanking. I'm not aware of any such restriction in terms of age, but generally with child welfare and child welfare issues, 12 years, once a child gets to 12, courts will start to give greater deference to their opinion, and we'll start to consider their views if there's an issue that needs to be decided.
Okay, so if you have a 12-year-old, hey, correct yourself before your own child becomes your proof behind what's happening. All right, I'm coming back to Auntie Toyi. I'm going to fire her a bunch of questions. And FYI, we've got tons of questions. You guys, thank you so much for sending them. At some point, we might have to release her, so that's why I'm firing her with a lot of questions. She's actually... Brother Bayo, please show us these individuals. Because if you don't know who is on this panel, we've got over here, Madame, married for 26 years, has all these lovely boys that are really good kids, and your children should get to know them. And then we've got Noe over here. She's a phenomenal lawyer in Calgary with Suji and Smith. And we've got Mohammed over here, Mr. CEO. He's a banker for over 2 decades. And we've got Annie Davidson over here. She's also a lawyer with the Design Law. You guys, you're talking to the creme de creme in this Calgary. We've got over here Mfone Didio, CEO of Caris Counseling, and also previously social worker in her life, pastor, counselor, multiple things, Holy Spirit, no. Okay. So those are the people who are answering all your questions today. The questions that you sent to us. All right, Antoine, we are trying to keep to time here. So what advice do you have for a parent if older siblings negatively influence the younger siblings?
Interesting.
I'm giving you all the fun ones.
I have got three boys, so I know what it means for siblings to influence the other. I think the first thing, it's the parents identifying what are those negative influences that you've seen. You don't want to just jump on your kid and say you're a bad influence. Like we said, you don't want to shame your kid, and you don't want to put your child down. So first, you need to be able to identify what are these influences I've seen, and call the older sibling and put a challenge to him or she, because I believe they also want to do well. But the truth I realize is working with teenagers, sometimes they come across to us the wrong way, to our young people, but in their hearts, they want to do right. Their hearts want to do right, but they just do it the wrong way or the way we read it. So call that older sibling and say, let's have a conversation. Like I said, if you're talking to anyone now, you go from a point of, I'm accusing you, they're going to put up a defense. Everybody does it, adult, kid. But if you go on the place of, okay, let's talk. I am worried about these things. I see these traits, and I think it can affect your sister or your brother. I need your help to parent him to do it right. You are holding him responsible. You are making that person, he or she, accountable and saying, I want you to do right by your brother, by your sister. And so you're already putting a challenge onto them to say, you have to do it right. Because the truth is, all the younger ones always look up to the siblings. They believe, my youngest will think their brother is almighty, he knows it all. It happens, or you have an older sister. So I think the approach is to start first with the older sibling, identify what those things are, have a conversation. Also, if you think what those things are things that will affect that older sibling, also let them know that I care for you. So it's like, let me just give me random, an older sibling that comes home late at night or too late and all of that, and the younger one is already thinking that's the way I want to start doing things. So you can approach the older and say, I know you're old enough to take care of yourself. You can be out there at 12 and 1, but I'm mom, and I worry about you. I don't want to cry over you, and I don't want to lose you. And I don't want something happening to you when you're out there late and I can't do anything about it. So please, can you help me so that I can have some peace about this? You're putting that child in a place to say that I care about you. I'm not just accusing you that you are misbehaving. I'm saying I care about you, and I want you to do something that's going to keep you safe. So coming from a place of love and grace to approach the older sibling will help them see things differently by the help of God. Also, you pray about it prayerfully and talk to them, and they will be able to help with the younger one. But the caution is, let's not go from a place of attack. Everyone is going to put up, but go from a place of care, a place of love, and a place of trying to say, I want the best for you, and I want the best for your younger ones, and I need you to join me on this journey so that we can do it together. Okay. And it might not happen overnight, but give them grace. You will get there. They will change, because like I say, from the heart of every child, every person, we've all been kids at one point. But nobody wants to destroy themselves. Nobody wants to do evil. I mean, they might think that's fun, but it's not to destroy themselves, because that's just what they can see. So in the bottom heart of every child, every adult, every teenager, every young person growing up, there is that good in there that we can tap into as a parent and to make them do better.
Wow. Okay, no comment. Yeah, okay, got it. Does anybody have anything to add to that? So if the younger siblings are being influenced by the older one, we are not attacking. We're not saying you, the horrible one that is horribling everybody. We are kind of going and asking them we are coming from a place of care. So anybody have anything to add? No? Going, okay. I'll fire you the second last one. How can culture be maintained in Canada when some of the children's friends with different origins, contrary to yours, teach your child different? Mohammed, I also need your opinion on this one.
Culture.
Yeah. So your child maybe has friends at school, the way it's looking, yeah.
So what are cultures? Cultures are ideas. They are customs that are used peculiar to a group of people. And we all have different cultures based on where we've lived or where we've come from. And let's not forget, we as parents, especially we Africans, we say we've come to this country because of our children's good. So we've brought them to a different culture that is different from the culture where we are coming from. And the truth is, culture evolves. You cannot stick to the culture of... so depending on what that culture also is, there are different things. So my kids have grown up in this country for the last 20 years. No matter how much my kids don't speak the African language, they don't even understand it. They don't speak it. Maybe they can say good morning, good afternoon. That's most. But when my son will greet you, they will still go like this. Because that's just the culture we kept in our home.
Okay.
So
if their friends were telling them, why do you do this thing?
So then you go back to what is that culture, and they've come to understand that from the African culture, from where we come from, it's a form of respect. If their friends come to the house and say, I miss Tony, and shake me, I don't see it as being rude because they are not from my culture, and my kids will understand that. So sometimes we have to pick the culture that we are attacking our kids about, or we are trying to say, oh, it has to be, because culture evolves over time. So there are certain cultures you can go and discuss and say, okay, where we are now, we need to kind of manage how things are done in a different way, but still help them understand where it is. But you cannot go. So there are some cultures that we brought from back home. I'm trying to find an example that, you know what, sometimes, even as the adult, I'm going, do we really need to do this? Like, because it's the way we've been stuck to it. But there are cultures that are evolving, and you can create new culture. That is the beauty of culture. Culture is just something that a group of people do. Create new culture in your home. Create new cultures for your kids. Like we talked about, talking to each other with respect. A culture can be, in this home, we don't yell at each other. When we want to talk about issues, let's address each other with respect and use the right tone. So your kids will not grow up yelling at their wives or husband or whatever, because it's a culture they're growing up with. So we can make new culture. Culture evolves. And if your kids have friends that are from all the culture, you can let them explain also. It's a conversation like we've talked about a lot. Those are their culture. This is the culture we have in this home. Your friend is going to come and call me Miss A or call me Tony. That's their culture. But when you go... So in African culture, we know we entertain a lot. When people come to our house, we cook for them, we entertain. We lived in a country where my kids were friends with, they were all white kids. And I remember they were coming over for a play date in our house one day. They were going to sleep over there, a bunch of guys. And the day they were coming, they were asking my son, so what should we bring? And my son said, oh, my mom is making all the food. You don't have to worry. So they came and so after they came, they ate, they had pizza, they did everything. And these guys were like, how much are we paying your mom? And my son was like, no, but the guys were like, no, we don't do that. Like, when we go to people's house, we pay, we all contribute, we chip in. And I said, no, my mom's culture is that when people come to the house, she's entertaining you. If she cannot afford to entertain you, she wouldn't have invited you guys to come. So in our culture, that's what we do. So we had explained that, and so the guys were like, oh, okay, it will be fun to come to your house. Should we come next week Saturday? We say, and we joked about it, and because that was it. So, but if I come and they say, oh, my culture is with prostrate, all the guys that come to my house should prostrate and greet me, then that makes no sense. Because it's not a culture those kids are from. So sometimes we have to look at those cultures and the things we are holding on to. Are they things that have evolved, and also explain to our kids why we are keeping that culture. And also, sometimes we have to let go of some of the old things that really don't make sense. And then, we're in a new culture, so we need to abide and live by the culture. We've learned about spanking kids. Like we said, in African culture, it's okay, we do it anyhow. Nobody's going to hold us. But we can't do that here. So you can't say, this is my culture. I have to beat you that way. You'll be in trouble, like lawyers have told us. So culture evolves, and we need to learn also and explain to our kids as we go along.
Yeah, no, good point. Mohammed, do you have anything?
I live, my next neighbor is white, my second neighbor is Chinese. And the beauty of living in a different culture is to learn about, their values, and no culture actually, bad, to be honest. It's just evolved with the time, as she said, and some are over traditions, And sometimes people do get confused with culture, religion, but culture is totally the way we live, the way we talk, the way we respect. In Japanese, people don't shake hands, so they do that. So I just give you an example that is sometimes how it impact actually in work life. So I had an advisor. She was in a role for a long time, but she was not moving up. And one of the reason is that she didn't know how to shake hand properly. And then because she didn't shake hand properly, she didn't connect with the client, with eye contact. Like sometimes, in some cultures, when we look into eyes, it's bad, So I think it's all about sharing and learning, about different cultures, and it's make us more rich. So that's how I try to live that way. People around me, all over the cultures, and when the question we should ask is that, as a parents, that who come to my home as a friends? If there's only one kind of a people coming to my home, then neither myself is rich in a culture, neither I'm introducing to my kids. So we need to work as a community together to make sure that, we are welcome to each other home. And then that's how we can learn.
Word. No.
So I think the perspectives that have been shared are fantastic, but I think that I have a feeling that the person who asked that question asked it from a place of negative influence. And so I think it goes back to the original, some of the things you shared earlier about identity. I think that as African parents, we need to start early to build the cultural identity of our children. We can do it in many ways. I'll give you an example. I do mine through clothing. My daughter wears an African dress to school every Friday. We need to make our children sufficiently grounded in their culture that even though they interact with other cultures, they can take the good from those cultures, identify the not so good, and say, you know what? I respect the fact that this is what you do, but I don't think that I want to do that. And you can't have a child that responds in that way if they are not sufficiently grounded in their identity. That's number one. The second thing is there's opportunities to influence culture, right? I've seen people who have made friends with people from other cultures, and those people have embraced their own culture. The same way that our children are being exposed to other cultures is the same way the children from those cultures are being exposed to our own culture. So there's an opportunity for cultural synergy, if you like. You take the good, you say, respectfully, I don't want to do that. And you respect the fact that that's their culture, even though you don't want to abide by that, right? And I think we have to be careful living in a multicultural, diverse country, not to snub anybody's culture, or think that our culture is superior to others.
Or inferior.
Or inferior, yes. We have to ensure that we're rooted in our cultural identity, have sufficient openness of heart to interact with people from other cultures, and the strength and will to embrace what is in alignment with ours and respectfully decline what is not.
That would be subject for another conference. How do we respectfully, yes.
I just want to add that when we teach our children, let's teach them why we're doing this as a culture, not just we do this. We do this because when they understand that this underlying value is why your kids genuflect, because it's a sign of respect. Any culture that doesn't agree with that underlying value, they will not accept it because their value is respect. Right. So let's teach them the underlying values, not just we do this. Why do we do it?
I like that. So we are giving the why with our, sorry, more questions are coming in. So we are giving the why, the underlying reason why your culture is this way. Why would you dress? Why does your child wear on Friday? This. So we're understanding. I'm identifying with my culture respectfully. Mohammed, one more question for you. What practical ways how can you protect children from excessive debt when they are young in a debt-driven culture?
I think that as the parents first, we should ask the question ourselves. How much debt I borrow, how much I own credit cards, So I think that that's very important question, but there is not a simple answer because we as a immigrant, when we come, we have a dream to buy a home, we have some needs to meet, we get into debts. No. In order for the kids, I think the one thing which we can teach them is habit of saving. And this is what I want to emphasize is that even though it doesn't matter how much debt we have, it has nothing to do if I don't have a habit of saving. Saving is something very different. And once we start accumulating it, and then we can see because it's a long run and how it works. But if we don't have that habit, what will happen is that even if I win a lottery, there are a lot of documentaries, people win the lottery, they again, become bankrupt, because of understanding the value of the money where we are. So I think the first thing is to make sure that we save. It doesn't matter, 1 cent, 2 cent, 3%, 2%, and you will see that in the long run, and that definitely when we look in a mathematical point of view, because of our age, it doesn't make a big difference because of the compound impact. But for the kids' point of view, it can make a huge difference even if they start saving like $20, $30 a month and put it into the compound income. I think the challenge we having these days is that we don't see the actual money. We just give the card. I think that touch is gone. So I think that the good thing is that if you have young kids, so show them the real money, show them how to spend, how to budget, play some games like Monopoly. There are a few things we can do that. But I think, again, we need to implement ourselves first. And the one thing I've learned is that consistently saving, from your income, even if 1%, 0.5%, disregard your other conditions. People have a lot of excuses, I have a lot of debts. It's easy to say, but you will see the magic. It's just a habit. You just keep doing it, then you can see some, good in your bank accounts.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, basically the parent should save and then work with the children to, and maybe going back also to that contentment, right? Because sometimes make sure your debt is good debt. Like it's not just debt to get Gucci, right? Like, so it may be debt to get a house or something that will appreciate in value. It's not just debt for the sake of it. Get content to, with what you have, and if possible, explain it with your children. If possible, do the budgeting with your children. We did, with Mohammed, we've worked together on some financing stuff and debt and finance. And teacher, you can do the budget with your children so that before they ask you for the essentials, they can see that there's no money in this budget that we are doing. So they won't even ask you sometimes because the money is not there. But if you do the budget, you just keep swiping the card, tap, tap, tap. They think that's how money works. But I've noticed even in my own life, when I give money, real cash to a child and I say, go and spend it, they don't want to spend their own money, but they want me to tap my card. So if possible, like Mohammed is saying, try and practice some of those habits. You also do and save whatever percentage you can. Work with them on the budget. Show them there is no extras. If you want us to move this, then let's reduce the food then. Which one do you want to cut? This is the budget. This is the money we have. Which one do you want to move? If the shoes are in, the food is out. Okay, so what do you want to do? Work with them so that they can see that money is not unlimited, because money is finite. But if you don't show them that money is limited and you just keep going to the mall and tapping, they would tap too. They don't feel that connection with the money and they can get into debt. Because yes, it is true, we are in a debt-driven society, but you have to be conscious on what kind of debt you are putting on your books. Not debt for Gucci handbags and Michael Kors. No offense. So.
Can I just add something to that, just to what Mohammed said? Also to let them know that credit card is not their money.
Mm-hmm.
We live in an economy where credit card is being sent to your house. Oh, you are put for 5,000. And even to the young ones, they're getting it. It just comes in anyhow. And they think it's free money until they realize, oh,
Their
I
credit
did not
is
pay it, and then the
damaged.
balance, and they keep on, they live in this, you pay the minimum, like it's, I can't, like, yeah, just pay your minimum and the debt is there. And that's a very, a deceptive mentality, sorry, for bankers and people that send credit
It's
cards.
okay, I am
that
one.
It's a very deceptive, that even, so a lot of adults are struggling in that level, and how much more the kids are getting sucked into it. So letting them know that credit card is not your money. It's good to use if you have your money. So I said to my kid, you use credit card when you know you have your cash and you're doing online because you want to pay with the card. And immediately you do it, you transfer that money back. That's the only reason why you need to have your credit card. You're not supposed to use it because it's not your money, except you have cash and you know you can't use it to pay for something. So teaching them about credit card, I think that's a big one. Credit card is something that is sucking people into debt that we need to teach against. And also to have teaching our kids to learn to invest at a very small age. It doesn't matter. Like you talked about savings. Those $20, $10, $200 can be put in an account that can begin to yield. Teach them how they can invest in little stocks, in things that they can keep this money for. Show them like all these calculator apps that shows how much you save and how much it can be in 5, 10 years. And they'll be like, you mean? Just me putting $200 aside or 10 to 50, in 10 years I can be a millionaire or I can be this. Let them see the compounding interest and how they can make money. It changes their mentality of just spending. And they see that, I can make my future better by investing.
Yeah, thank you. And you can also add, if you buy the essentials, but in 10 years from now, it will not be any different. It doesn't increase in value. It doesn't multiply. Unless maybe it's a car, an old car. Okay, I'm coming to you. Okay, so in terms of debt, do not, the credit card is not yours. The parent, please try and model, communicate the money. Don't hide money. Show them whatever there is, divide it. Okay, if they ask you for this one, ask them which one do you want to move on the agenda. All right, I'm back over here. How can you help parents with the preteens to balance academic responsibilities with extracurricular activities, plus social life? Because we need it.
How can you help parents?
How can you help the parents with preteens to coach towards the balancing of academic responsibility, extracurricular activities, and the social life?
Okay. So I think all parts of it are important, because when I look at the child, like in their ecosystem, all of it is important. When we were talking about balance, first of all, I think for me is having a conversation with the child. If you can do 2 or 3, let's take the first 2 or 3, and then let's look at why did you make that choice, right? But in terms of, because I personally right now I'm in that phase, and I also look back at it, in life it's either you give or take, right? So if you go to the academic first, let's have a schedule. Let's talk about scheduling. I know that's something that most of us struggle with. But if I have a schedule that on Monday when you come back from school, this is the time that you eat. After eating, this is when you study. After studying, this is what it is. And then we try to stick to it, that would help. But if we don't have scheduling and we stick to it, that's going to really, really is going to be a problem to cope with. So first of all, is scheduling and then looking at priorities. Because for a child, and personally in the line of work that I do now, one of the things that we tell parents is, because these children, they need this, you're looking at it as extracurricular activities, but they need those connections in those places that they go to help them navigate life into this world. So if you look at it, beyond doing basketball, she's having a community there, right? Beyond going to piano, she's having a community there. Beyond, going to doing volleyball, she's having a community there. Because they need this community, and the more she's engaged in those communities, the less time she will have to be on social media, right? To be doing other things, because there's no space in vacuum. And that comes to the pressure that it puts on us parents. Because even the balancing, I think parents should be talking about balancing. Because you have to do the driving, right? You have to go for piano today, you have to go, like yesterday I was looking at it, I said we subscribe to YMCA, we don't even have the time to go to it. But now we are planning to put it in, right? Let's schedule and see what can you do, when can you do, and please do it with other parents. and get a body, right? So, for example, if Ethan is doing piano, Delight is doing piano, Immaculate can drop, so it can be easy. Please, and academic, let's talk about academics here. As, I don't know about other Africa, but Nigerians, we always focus on the score, Even me, when I refresh Power School, I'm looking at the GPA. You're looking, as much, that is important as well, all right? But I think we have to be careful the way we communicate to our children, the importance that is. We can say things like I said, communication. You're going to start basketball. Okay, so Delight, if you have to be in basketball, let's talk about your science and your math. This is where the grades have to be, right? So then I'm setting a target for her to work towards, right? And then if I notice that that's dropping, let's have a conversation. How can we support you to help bring your maths and science grades up? What we do most times is we just go straight off to a discipline or a consequence that we did not communicate. If from the beginning I've communicated that if your science grades, our expectation is that your science grade will be at 90. And what's the reason why? We understand? Why do we need that grade at 90? Because we are expecting that you'll be able to get into school. Since you're playing basketball, you'll be able to get scholarships, schools would, you make it about, you start to list the benefit why that should be. And then, so we're going to work together towards that. If that is coming down, then if it comes down to 85, so maybe Delight will have to stop basketball for some time. So she already knows. Are you getting me? So by the time that grade gets there, she already knows that the next agenda for us to do is that we're going to pause basketball. So if you are struggling or if you have a test, and maybe just being part of the academic too. Maybe you had a science test. I know that you had a science test. When you come back, hey, D, how was the science? I didn't do well. Well, let's talk about what does that mean? Okay, next time when is the science? Let's prep. The day before science test, can we not go for swimming so that we can have time to prepare for science? You see what I'm doing? So we have to be involved and help the child juggle that schedule. If we just leave it up to the child to juggle it, the child doesn't have that capacity, and that's why the child will start to get anxiety, and get overwhelmed and then just give up.
Thank you. So scheduling, and communicating. I think I really still take away that communication. If you're going to tell a child, give a child a consequence, if they don't do academics or if they can't do an activity, you need to communicate this. And I think that some of the conflicts we are seeing, and we got tons of questions, and even in the interest of time, but most of these can still go back to some of the key things you're saying. Communicate. We are doing this. This is the reason why we're doing it, and this is the benefit for you, and these are the consequences. So what if a teenager, quickly, I'm going to push this. What if a teenager quotes you that, I know of billionaires that did not go to school. I can do YouTube. I can TikTok. As long as Trump allows it. Oh, yeah. Hey. Yes, I can be a content creator. I don't need a degree for this thing.
Yeah, I do agree that you don't need a degree for that. But people didn't go to school. I do get it. But are you them? Let's look at, can you tell me their story? Let's go back. I always say, let's go back and look at their life. Let's walk through all the things they've been through. Don't just pick the success and point that to me, right? Let's go through what structures did they have? How did they move from not going to school? Do you have the same, foundation? You understand? Yeah, to be able to build on. Because they didn't just move from here to there. Don't just point that to me. Please, let's look at their whole story. Let's look at their lifestyle, how they went through it. And then let's talk about it.
That's a good one, because some of them their dad might have a golfing buddy who owns a big corporation and you don't. No, I think you have something to say here.
I think when you come from a culture that is very certificate-based as a parent, it can be very difficult for you to know how to explain the value of education to a child, because the end goal is seen as having a certificate to get a job. Education is about the acquisition of life skills. The end of education is not to get a job or to get a certificate. And if we start to rephrase the narrative,
about money, though, because something that will tell you, I just want money.
And if you have money, but you cannot manage your money, what is the essence of money? There are a lot of stars who have had their 5-minute shine, because they could not manage their wealth. So when I have youth say that to me, I give them an alternative story. If they bring Warren Buffett, I bring the story of a star who made money and is poor right now because of lack of management. Because you're presenting to them an alternative perspective. You can do YouTube, Instagram, whatever you want to do. How are you going to manage that? Behind those videos you see are people supporting some of these big content creators with graphic design, people supporting them with marketing, people supporting them with financial planning, people supporting them with accounting, right? That's how they're able to sit in front of that camera and video themselves and continue to make consistent income. If you don't go to school, how will you know the difference between personal income tax and corporate tax, or be able to understand the financial statement, or be able to read a contract or a simple document and know whether you're signing away your entire life? So it's how we are framing the narrative around the value of education, sometimes that needs to change.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Honestly, that is very, very good. I like the creating the alternative, because most of the time they're just focused on, as long as I make money, I just want to be a millionaire, I just want to, but you make a very good point. You have to be good at what you do, and even some things you can do by talent, and some things it's skill. You can't read a financial statement if you did not go to school. And even if you're a billionaire and your business is making a lot of money, I can siphon it from your books and you will not know, because you don't know how to read your own financial statements. So, educate yourself. Very good questions. And before I get to release that in, I've got a question for you. It says, how can you foster a sense of responsibility and independence in the preteens or teenagers? How can you foster a sense of responsibility and independence?
A sense of responsibility and independence.
Because I'm assuming this person is saying you've been raising them, you're caring for them, and now you just want them to be independent.
Oh, well, I mean, responsibility starts by giving them tasks to do and letting them hone it. So, you know, sometimes you say, oh, I want you to do this. And before they start, we're already going there and say, hey, so you... No. That is your work, and I expect you to do that, and I want you to get it done. And let them do it, and over time, they get better at it. So that's giving them... responsibility, and the other thing was
independence.
And yes, so I think it works hand in hand. Just giving them that free hand to do it. They might make mistake. You could start even just like, oh, today you are the one cooking the jollof rice in the house. Be ready to eat salty rice that day as parents, but give them the chance to try it. Let them do it, and then they get better at it. So they hone that, and you know, just give them a responsibility that makes them feel that they are in charge. And that you are not the one trying to control them. So when we start from a young age, you don't wait until, you didn't teach them when they are 5, 6, 7 years, and you want them to learn it at 18 or 20. Sorry, it's too late. So we have to start at as early as a very early age. Keep, like someone said when you get back from school, keep your bag in a certain place. That's a responsibility that they need to hone, and they have to do it. So it's not like they left the bag anywhere and the next day, and you went to pick it up. No. So just swear that your bag needs to be kept on the shelf, okay? You want them to affirm that, okay. And they go, so you keep on emphasizing that to them. That way they hone that responsibility. And like you said, allowing them to do things. And they can make mistakes. If they are not mistakes that are detriment to their health or their life or their future, maybe in things at home, cooking, yeah, they will learn from it and they become independent and they will do it. And at a certain age, for those who have older kids, maybe in their 25, 24, 26, sometimes it's time to let them go. And let them go and go start a life. Someone was like, oh, your kids want to say, I want to move out. You're like, no, don't move out, so you need to stay. It's okay. Because when he goes out, he has to pay for his own bills. He has to be responsible for his house. If he doesn't pay and MX and he goes, you know, so we need to start giving them this, but we start from a very early age, even with little things at home. And they begin to hone it, and then they do better at it.
Okay, thank you. I totally appreciate that. Like, give them the responsibility, be ready to, you know, they'll make mistakes, and arrange yourself so you're not getting in there and meddling, and just like you tell them to do the dishes, and now you're doing half the dishes. Like, just don't do it. Like, manage yourself so you're not doing it. I don't know, Bio, if you can help. Someone is asking for the YouTube link. I don't have it on me. The YouTube link. I don't have it. So, Bio, I don't know what you can do about that, what you can manage in your space. But I've got one more question for you, and I'll release you. And the lawyers and the social worker, we've got 5 more minutes because we started a little bit later. And this question says, what are the best practices for parents to stay involved in their pre-teens education and school life? How do you stay involved? Best practices to stay involved.
To stay involved.
Yes.
Attend, I'm trying to remember what they do in school now. PT, Parent Teachers Conference. Attend those meetings, or when they call. When my kids, there was a time we were in Canada, and the kids, they were having something in school where they called the parents to make a decision on the policies they were going to run for that school year. And we didn't want to go. We're like, no, I was like, yeah, it's okay. But eventually my husband and I pushed. I think eventually one of us went for the meeting, and we realized at that meeting there were only 3 or 5 parents that were there. And these people were the one making policy for that. What was going to happen in that particular school? Oh, we're going to have this show. We're going to have this event. My husband was like, So just, so the more involved we are, the more we know what's going on. And then, like the question you were trying to answer, asked me for, like, when you don't like the program, the school, if we are involved in those things, we can influence the programs. Because sometimes it's just a few bunch of parents that make those decisions and say, oh, we're going to celebrate Halloween in October because they're thinking of programs to do for the school. So, number one, being involved in those things, like they're calling for policy or board meetings, they want parents to volunteer. I know we are very busy, but I think it's very important. Because what I believe, and I always say, is that I said, your kids have a certain age to be kids. Once they're 20, they are 19, they will never be kids again. So I can't turn my 26-year-old or 25-year-old to act like a 5-year-old. I can't make him tell me the things a 5-year-old is going to tell me anymore because that gap has gone. So now that we have the time that they are in those school age, be involved. When they get back from school, how was school today? Find a way to ask questions in a way that they won't give you the monosyllable answers. Good. So it's not, how was school? Good. What was good about school today? What was something new that happened in class today? Or what was something interesting that happened in the playground or on the bus today? So that way they won't just say, we can't just say yes to that one. There's no yes or no. You have to tell me something. So that makes them say more, and then we get to know what's happening. So being involved, we talked about taking them for all these extracurriculum activities. Go with them. I know we have busy schedule, but like I said, you miss this time with them, you can never have it back. It's a sacrifice we have to make. Go for a sports game, whatever they're doing. There was a time in my life that, and this is not kidding, we were ministering, we were in church, we were workers. We were living in Australia, and then Monday to Sunday, I am on a soccer pitch, like every day of the week. I am on a soccer pitch. Remember, I have 3 boys, so they all play soccer. My husband also plays soccer, so that makes 4 boys, and they all play on different days. So I go for 4 trainings, and they all have games on different days. So some days I'm finishing service from church, everybody's packed their soccer, get things into the car for money. So we plan the schedule. So who has game on Sunday? They'll tell me somebody has at 6 a.m. Somebody has, so I say, if we're going for 6 a.m. soccer, it means we can't make it to clock church. So the condition is we're coming back for evening service to serve because we're not coming in the morning. So they know the rules. Tell me your game and we'll plan for it. And my life was like that, like Monday through Sunday. There was not a soccer pitch. But now my kids are grown. They're not doing that anymore. I can't make them do that again. That phase of my life is gone. So when our kids are young, get involved as much as you can in their sports, in their education, in the school. By doing that, you get to even know your kids because you see things happen. Because we all have different personalities. When I'm in church, there's a personality that shows. When you are home, there's a personality you show. I mean, we're still the same person, but when you're on the soccer field or sports or whatever, there's a different energy you bring into that. So when you are in all those places, you see your kids in different ways. You experience them in different emotions, and that way you know what's happening in their life. And also remember, all your kids are unique. You might have 4 or 5 kids, 2 kids, they are all unique, and so they're going to be different. So being involved in everybody's life will be great.
Wow, thank you so much. I think that would definitely wraps that question up. Get involved. The parent-teacher conferences, I can't even emphasize enough because Some parents are going to show up, they're going to make decisions about your children, and then you start complaining that, oh, this school, they did this. Where were you when the decisions were being made? So yes, we are busy, but try and squeeze a few minutes here and there, show up, get involved. That's how you get involved.
Immaculate, I just want to say something. So be engaged, be actively engaged.
Don't
show up
just
and
show
be on
up
your
and
phone
just be
and
on
you're
your
catching
phone.
up on your email.
Ha.
Please.
So show up, and okay, if you're watching us, online audience, we recognize you guys. Thank you so much, honestly. There's big online audience, so thank you for not showing up here physically. You're missing. We miss you, but thanks for engaging. Yes, so show up and be physically engaged. So maybe, do the high fives, create a handshake. My son and I have a handshake, unique just to the two of us. When something good happens, that's our secret handshake. We're like, yeah, that was good. That was good. So find something and engage. Don't just be like, okay, I showed up to your soccer game. Let me answer everybody's emails and, So show up and be there and be active. So thank you so much, guys. And Antoine, if you can give us 5 minutes, but if not, 5 minutes? 5 minutes? 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. We started late, so we're going to quickly switch to a legal question, and we are running out of time. Guys, thank you so much for bearing with us. This is the last legal question we have. So what are the legal implications of not sufficiently providing for a child what they think they need versus what is possible?
So
Is there
every
any?
parent has an obligation to provide basic necessities. And sometimes when we hear basic necessities, we always think food, shelter, clothing, but it also includes love, affection, and protection. And it is important to recognize this because Canadian law defines child abuse in these contexts. It doesn't just define
No, if I suppose. Me, I thought that once you give the children food and clothes,
Yeah.
because most parents will say, do you not have a house? Do you not have food? Nah. Do you not have a bed? What is your problem?
Yeah.
So you're going more
yeah,
than this.
Yeah. Child abuse is defined in the context of physical, emotional abuse, sexual, and neglect. Those are the 4 key pillars of child abuse. And even though neglect is not a crime in itself, there are several crimes under the criminal code that can be called into focus when a child is neglected. So, for instance, there are sections of there's a section of the criminal code that deals with failing to provide the necessities of life. It's a criminal offense. Harassment, which some of us think is only when you go and slap somebody, but uttering threats. You threaten to take away your child's pet. You threaten to take away something that's very important to them.
How about phone?
These are not things that directly. The rule is basics. That's the rule. Basic.
Like if your child needs a pet and you take away the pet.
So we're looking at basic. The key word here is that it's a basic need. It's something that they need for their survival, right? So again, we have to be careful how we sort of define some of these things. I think the key thing here is just noting that it's not just food, shelter, clothing. It's affection, it's protection. As parents, that's something that we need to remember. And then the other thing to emphasize here is that it's not about what is this child neglect or neglecting your responsibilities is not just about what you did not do. It's also about what you did not prevent from happening, right? So it's both an active and a passive obligation in some respect. If you knew that a child going somewhere would have harmed them, and you let that happen, that's not. You may not have done anything, but by your inaction, something happened. So we have to be very careful about that. But I think the key, the central thought in response to that question is the need basic? If it's a basic need, you have to provide it for the child. That's an obligation. If you don't provide it, then you're exposing yourself to child neglect allegations. If it's a need that is not basic, then it's managing it in some of the ways that have been recommended here today. having conversations about why something can't be made available immediately. But also remember that basic is not just tangible. Basic is intangible. Love, affection, protection.
I think that's a unique thing. A lot of African parents and even immigrant parents, I think that's the part we miss. People think, do you not have a house? Did I not pay for your school fees? Something. And so you're saying the love, the affection, the protection, preventing things that could happen to a child.
The reason is because child abuse is not defined only in the context of neglect. It is defined to include neglect, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. So those are the key themes central to child abuse under Canada's laws. So you have to be, in viewing what constitutes abuse. If you keep it only to tangibles, then you miss the big picture.
Yeah. Okay. That is a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. There is no other way for us to... There's tons of questions. We will maybe reconvene this panel. Lots of questions, but I have nothing else to say except that we need to clap for this panel. Please, if you have hands, even online audience, yes, we see you. Please clap loudly so we can hear you. Yes, these guys have done an amazing job. That is something every parent, I think, from here is going to have to take away. There's physical providing for your children. There is, I'm going to beg on our African fathers and our immigrant fathers and all the other mothers to provide the affection, there could be neglect, there could be it's not just food. I've given you food and a place to stay. There is more according to what we've been told legally. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in clapping one more time for Toyin, for Noe, for Asif, Mohammed, Anedi Davidson, and Mfon Udofia, the one and only. And my name is Immaculate, and I'm signing off for tonight. We've got so many questions. We'll reconvene at another time to get your answers down for you. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.